Hey, my name is Barbie Armenta. I'm a wife, mother, life coach, and founder of Brave One. Everyone has a story, and I believe that you can be inspired in your own life by hearing another woman's courageous story. We're here to talk about purpose, identity, divorce, splitting families. If you're talking about it, I want to talk about it. We are here to have brave conversations. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited about our guest today, and I know you are going to love her. She is a new friend. She is a former HSN on-air guest and national trainer for America's top beauty brands and full-time beauty boss. She's dedicated over 2 decades to inspiring women to do the things that inspire them and rarely discuss perspective on the marriage of inner and outer beauty. She is confidently stepping away from her old life and comfort zones towards a new vision of success and being unapologetically ambitious to pave the way for others to keep raising their level of integrity and clean living. Welcome to the podcast, Amanda May.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I am so excited that you're here. I cannot wait to hear more about you, along with everyone else getting to hear. So let's start from the beginning. Tell me a little bit about where you're from and, all the things.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Ohio, and I think around 18, I decided that I was going to move to Vegas. 18, 19. It was right after I had my son. And so, I moved to Vegas in 2006.
What took you to Vegas?
God. Telling my family after being a partier for a few years that God was calling me to Vegas was certainly a stretch in their belief system. Like, okay. But it really was. It really was. And so after a few years of dealing with or not dealing with the loss of my father, I was using a lot of drugs to just numb the pain. And after I found out I was pregnant and got clean and sober, I was forced really to face what those emotions and those feelings were. And in that, really found my way back to the Lord. And when I did that, he was like, there's more for you. And so, I confidently, unapologetically stepped away from my old life then too.
And left.
That's what it took me.
Your life because God told you to move to Sin City.
Yes.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, I know. It sounds crazy, but that's really what happened.
No, that's an incredible story of you being able to walk through that where you're numbing with the drugs, and that for God to just take you out of that. You had shared that you just quit when you got pregnant, and that's a pretty amazing story. That's only God.
It is only God. It's God's grace. And I grew up in the church. And so there was definitely the spirit within. And I never lost that, even through the years of being angry with God and feeling like, why? Or why did all of this happen? Struggling with my own sense of self-worth, and then not really knowing how to manage those emotions and the beliefs that I created around myself because of those situations. It was just too much to handle. And so the thing that I turned to was the thing that would at least numb it, since I didn't know what to do with it. And so the Bible talks about raising your kids in the ways of the Lord, and they won't depart from it. While I had a little bit of an off-road experience, I went back to the Lord because, I knew that that's where I felt the most peace. And so even in the midst of the years of partying, there was still a conversation happening with God, inside me. And
it sounds like it was a time for a fresh start.
It was. Yeah, it really was.
So Vegas. So what took you there? We know God took you there, but so what was the plan?
Yeah. So I don't really operate much on long-term plans except for in my business. I can think a year, 3, 5 years out in my business and do a lot of strategy planning around things. But as far as where I feel called, I will just take action. And so I'm a bit of a free spirit. There's a balance between the two. There's times for planning and there's times to just take action. And in that time in my life, it was just about taking action. Like I knew I wanted a different environment. I was having a son, and so I wanted more for him. And I felt like I wasn't going to reach my potential staying in the same place. So being okay with the fear of the unknown, I'm like, let's do it, you know? And so drove across the country 4 days with a 2-year-old and my St. Bernard.
And that was not boring.
That was not boring. No, it was not. And he did amazing in the car. He's still just such a chill. Well, he's a man now, but he's super chill even now. But yeah, so when I got to Vegas, it was about getting back into the beauty industry in a bigger way. I wanted to have more impact. I wanted to do more. I wanted to live a really like flashy life because I was from a small town in Ohio. And I remember when I first went there, I had a woman come up to me and she's like, "You're so beautiful. You should model." I was like, "Really? Thank you." And so it was the first time somebody even was like complimenting me like that. And then there was an older gentleman when I was at breakfast and him and his wife were having breakfast and he came over and he's like, "You just shine so bright. My wife and I want to buy you breakfast." So they paid for my breakfast. And I was like, this is the best city ever. So everybody just seemed so nice and alive and vibrant. And so I was really excited about trying something new and starting over. And I got a job at the Wynn. And I was only there for a few months because I kept thinking about the comment that I could model. And I'm like, all right, well, I could check people in at the spa or I could model. So I'm going to try that. So I did that for a few years and it was amazing, but it wasn't as much as I love it. It was my heart is for the beauty industry. And that is somewhat an element of the beauty industry. So I did get to experience that lifestyle. But then I went back into beauty with Caesar's Palace. And that was crazy because I had no experience at all. I'd never gone to business school. I didn't really know much about business at all, but I knew I could figure it out. So when I went to the interview and got the job, I was like, okay, so now I got to start Googling because I remember being in my first meeting and they said P&L. And I'm like, I have no idea what a P&L is. So I'm Googling like, what is a P&L? How do you read one? And it was just a matter of like learning as I went, but I knew God could give me the wisdom to find my answers. And that's what I relied on. And I constantly prayed for God to give me wisdom so that the steps I did take were aligned and setting me up for really what he had for me out there.
I love that you even prayed over what's a P&L, like, right. Because God will give us wisdom. He will either give us a YouTube video or a person, to tell us. But I spent 30 years in the beauty industry. So you are in an industry that has my heart too. And I love that. I love helping women, always have. And so now I just do it in a different way. But I remember when I got a divorce, I got a job at a pretty big place and they told me I needed to do a P&L. So I'm like, oh, I understand.
That.
Yes. But also as a single mom, you figure it out, right?
You do. I did figure it out. And I continue to. I often will say yes and figure it out later because I figure if God's bringing it to me, there's a reason. And knowing that I'll figure it out. I will. I always do. And so I don't want to operate in my limitations or my perceived limitations. I want to push myself and stretch to do more. And you know what that feels like.
Yes. So you didn't stay there. How long did you stay at Caesar's?
Just short of a year. Yeah.
Because just looking at all the things that you've done, you move quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So were you still modeling then at the time as well?
I was doing some modeling as well. Mm-hmm. Convention modeling. I was modeling at Planet Hollywood. Yeah. So I still do for fun.
Yeah. So you were starting to live that big life that you were hoping for.
I was. And so the first product I ever designed, that was another piece of it. Because in modeling, and I was in Vegas initially in 2000, in the boom, like before, let's call it, I guess, the crash of 2008. It was like 2006, 2007. I mean, there was so much business flowing through that city and I was making so much money. So I invested in my own makeup line. And I was like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. And I researched manufacturing plants in the US and product ingredients and packaging suppliers and put together like a custom private label. So it was products that were already on the market, but then packaged it differently with a different use. And Shape Magazine voted it the Try It Product of the Year. And so that was another thing I just kind of figured out along the way. But that's what I invested the money that I did have into so that it could continue to make me more.
So, and then what did that lead to? And do you still have that line?
I do. Yes, it's called Divine. Yeah, I was just looking at my first logo and how much my brand and the product has developed since 2006 or 2007 is when I launched that.
And so where can people find that now?
That's on my AmandaMayBeauty.com website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Because we're all going to have to check that out after this. So then what? What was next? Do you have your own product line?
So.
And how old's your son now? Where is he? I mean, in this time of your life, what's he up to?
So he was about 6. And I mean, I could talk an entire podcast just about him. So what he was doing was thinking it was a really big deal to like jump off the second step in the house. He's like, yo, Mom, watch. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And so that talks to just like the spirit of him. He's just been a very like, I don't want to say not rowdy. He's just not a rowdy little boy. And when he cried, it was always like kind of quiet. My friends would be like, is that how he's crying? And I'm like, mm-hmm. Slept through the night, still sleeps a ton. Like pretty much everything he did at 6, he's doing as an adult too. Like super chill, very intelligent, very present, taking it all in. So he's the same way when he was 6.
So does he have your ambition?
Ooh, that could be a touchy comment. I think he's more clear about what he wants, where I'm more go with the flow and will take opportunities that come my way. He's more methodical about what he'll do. So, you know, I'm always like, what are you doing? Where are you going? Do. And he's like, Mom, I'm attracting things right now. Yeah. So he does, but he's a lot more clear about how he handles it.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. So, okay. So 2008 is when I launched my product line. Shortly after that, I was asked to start leading the runway shows at Miami Swim Week. So I moved to Florida for about 6 years and worked with the production crew there. And out of like 16 shows, me and my teams worked 9 of them. So we had the bulk of the shows of Miami Swim Week. And that led to making amazing connections and being asked to be the brand ambassador for a company called the Vamp Stamp on HSN. And I had never done live TV, but if you put a camera in front of me, I'll talk. Especially if it's about beauty, I'll talk about a beauty product all day. And so, so they asked me to be on their show, and that was so fun. I love live TV, the energy of it. I mean, there were shows that we filmed at 2:00 in the morning. And so it was like, I'd have to show up at maybe 6 p.m. My first show might be at like 9 p.m. And then I'd have a 2 a.m. show and then a 9 a.m. show. So I'd be like kind of sleeping in the green room, like have to take out my contacts and then like put them back in my eyes after 2 hours and, you know, get back out in front of camera and sell. And I loved every second of it. I miss that. That would be an element that I'm kind of just drawing back into my life in a different capacity, like TV and filming and podcasts and stuff like that, because I really enjoy it. But when the pandemic hit, everything changed. So we weren't doing live filming anymore. They moved it into like at-home studios and stuff like that. So they really changed their structure. And at that time, then the company that I was working with no longer worked with HSN. So it was after that, then I decided to go back to my hometown and open up a location with everything that I had learned over my 10 years away. And we did really great. There was nothing like it. And I was able to take a perspective from across the country to a small town. And it was like I was a little celebrity there, which was really funny because I was in national magazines and my parents were like, oh, that's great. And then I was in the local newspaper and it was like crazy, like, oh my God, so just small town vibes. Yeah. And so that was a lot of fun. And my sister helped me immensely at that location because she's lived in the same town for 25 years. Her kids have went to the same school for a very long time. And she's been married like 25 years. So she helped me a lot. She knew a lot of people in town and we kicked butt for a solid 3 years. And then right before the pandemic, this was another God thing. My lease was up and everything in me was like, close the location. And I was traveling back and forth from Vegas to Ohio, pretty much every month. And at that time it was like, but are you sure, God? Mm-hmm. And I did. I closed the location, moved all of the stuff from the location to Las Vegas. And then 2 months later, the pandemic happened. And so luckily I had closed it. I didn't enter into a new lease that I would have been stuck in. And I was able to get all of my product from one part of the country to another without any issues.
Yeah. What a blessing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I put all my time and energy at that point into the Vegas market, which is when I met the doctors from Genesis that I work with now. Also at that time is when I was asked to start writing for the magazine that's based out of Vegas, deluxe version. And and then started building really my online training platform for beauty and permanent makeup, and then the writing and building bigger business within the Genesis brand. So,
yeah, I love your online platform for trainings, especially in this. It was so right on time. I love to see the thread that you have of just, you said you were a free spirit, but I love that you're a free spirit being led by the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
Because of where it takes you. It's like right on time for where we are in the world, what he has you doing. And it's exciting to see from the outside. I'm sure in the moment there was so much, but to be able to look back at this point in your life, is it exciting to you to see this thread?
Definitely. And there still takes a lot of faith about where I'm going in my career. Like every step of the way, I'm like, I know this feels like the right step, but it doesn't necessarily feel like God's opened the veil for me to see where I'm headed. There's still a little bit of like, I can see the direction. I know each step is the right one, but I don't know what's coming. I just know it's going to be big.
Yeah. That step of faith to close a business when it's successful, when it doesn't make sense. Because so often God asks us to do things that just don't make sense. And how often we won't do it. And so I just love your walk of obedience to end that. So then what? Now you're working for Genesis. You've got an online platform. You've still got your makeup line.
Mm-hmm. So,
and you're writing.
I am. And I am also writing a book. And that's been in my space for a long time, the writing part. And part of my video creating for my YouTube channel is getting out what I believe will be the content fully that's in the book. So talking through it, women like to talk. I like to talk through my thoughts sometimes. And so talking through it helps me further clarify the direction I want to go completely with the book. Although I have about 40% of it completed, like the other content that's going to go in it or the activities that will be in each chapter, it's helping me to talk through it. So that's cool. But Yeah. So about a year ago, a little over a year ago, I met a really incredible man and just so much integrity. And when we met, it was like we both knew we didn't want to date for fun. We wanted to date for marriage. And he also grew up in the church, and his mom is a professionally trained opera singer. I knew I was along the right lines. And so he just spirit filled. But when we met, it was kind of one of those crazy God moments where we just happened to be at the same place. But we both didn't go to those parties very often. And we have kind of crossed paths a lot over the last 13 years, but never met. And it was like, wait, well, for example, like he's in entertainment, and my sister has a calendar that he's in from 13 years ago. And I was like, oh, my boyfriend's been in your closet for 13 years. So like awesome. Some of these little, but I didn't even cross my mind. So he's like, we've kind of been in each other's space, but had never actually met each other. So I think God had a lot of work to do on both of us before we could come together at this phase in our life. But when we met, his heart is just incredible. And I was like, okay, you're pretty awesome. Are you for real? And so, there was just a lot of alignment, and unlike most people in Vegas, where dating would be going out and drinking and eating and partying and doing all the things that you do in Vegas, we didn't do that. We disconnected from the city. We went out to the mountains, and we hiked and we climbed, and we were one-on-one with other spiritual couples. And it was a time to really get to know each other. And then he hit me with, I might move back to Texas.
This episode is sponsored by the Brave Gathering 2022 Revival. Join us at the historic Ridgely Theater coming up October 21st and 22nd. 2 days of live music, real connections, and relatable stories. Get your tickets today at braveone.net/gather. Can't wait to see you there.
No, you can't leave. I'm like crying. I'm like, but I think I love you. Like, you can't leave me. So it's interesting, God's path, because a year later, when my business partners and the doctors at Genesis Lifestyle Medicine moved to open up 4 locations in Dallas, right down the street from where he was talking about moving a year earlier. And the lease was up in our house, and everything just kind of played out in a way that felt like a neon sign in my face. And we had just signed with a modeling agency together, and they moved their company to Dallas. And so all this stuff's happening. And so when you talk about moving quickly, I'm pretty sure I told him I would marry him like 2 weeks in too. So yeah, that was kind of quick too. Like, did you want to get like married this weekend?
It would have been really easy. You were in Vegas.
Like, time's ticking. Let's do this. And so, but when it was like midweek, I had gotten a call about an event in town, and then I in Dallas, and we're still in Vegas. And we really hadn't talked about moving to Dallas again. But then this week comes around, and there's an event, and then the doctor that I work with tells me there's another event. It's all happening at the same time. And so I'm like, I think I might fly to Dallas this weekend. Like, are you down? And it was like a Thursday, maybe a Wednesday. And like by Thursday, I had booked our tickets. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm leaving Friday. Like 2 days later, I'm on my way to Texas to go connect with everybody. I met Chaun's family for the first time without him. I just showed up at their house. They were amazing. It was awesome. I hung out with his whole family without him there. And, you know, a couple hours with his family, I'm like, this place feels like home. Like, it has a very similar vibe to where I grew up in Ohio. And I just loved it as soon as I got here. And then when he got to town a few days later, I'm like, what do you think about moving? And we slept on it. And it, like, by the next day, we're like, we think this is right. So we went back to Vegas, sold everything from what I had spent 18 years building. And that was an emotional journey. And, like I always wanted to create a really grounded space for my son, even though like I had different relationships. It was like, I wanted him to feel like his home was his home. And so I put a lot of work and time into building a space that felt like home. And so to have him be 18, tell me that he wants to stay in Vegas with his dad to finish out school, know that I'm being called, we're being called, Chaun and I are being called to Dallas, and looking at a whole house full of stuff going, God's stripping away all of my old identities and everything that I thought I was building for. And so it has been and was a very stretching kind of experience, and with a lot of emotion, and also a balance between like emotion and watching this idea of a life that I had, and then also the excitement of getting to start fresh in a new city with Chaun and build something so incredible that we feel like God's calling us to do. And so we drove our matching cars from Vegas to Dallas. And my sister is, like I said, she's lived in the same town for a long time. And I think she lives a little vicariously through me. When I told her I wanted to move, she's like, I'm going to fly out and we'll drive together. And I'm like, you're crazy, but I'll take the help. And she did. She came out and cleaned and had food delivered and packed. And she worked hard a couple days to help get it ready, and then drove across the country with me. And we brought everything that fit in little tiny U-Hauls that we could pull behind our trucks, and our dogs. Yeah, that was pretty much it. It started all over, and it's exciting. It's exciting.
It is exciting. And I think it's important that you highlighted that. I think so many times we go through transitions and we're like, oh, it's exciting. We have something exciting coming, but mourning what you left behind is also a fair thing, that it's okay that you mourn that. And you were leaving a son and he's 18, and you've obviously raised him well, that feels confident that he is. This is what we do, right? We raise them to grow up and out, and we're never ready for that day.
No, and as you and I spoke of before, it felt a little selfish to push. Of course, brought it up a few times and continue to be like, hey, so Dallas is a great place to live, son. And he's like, I know what you're doing, Mom. And then, any girl I might see that's cute, I'm like, what do you think about her? Like anything that might catch his attention to get him to town. But no, yeah, he's solid. And so I'm very confident that he knows how to self-correct, and he's very self-aware. And that makes me feel really good, even if he's not here with us.
Yeah. Well, I shared with you that we have that in common, that my son, when I got divorced, moved to Vegas for his senior year to be with his dad. And it was the hardest thing ever. I thought going through divorce was hard. No, leaving my son in another state was hard. But just realizing that those were all about me, that I wanted, he knew what he wanted, and he's very successful now and has done great. And probably very much because of that experience of getting to go and do that. And so you've obviously prepared him, and he's ready. So, but I know it's hard.
Yeah.
But now you're in Texas. Mm-hmm. I'm from Texas, so I'm a little partial. I'm like, welcome to Texas.
Thank you.
So, so what's next for you and Chaun? You came with Chaun.
Yeah. So we have been talking pretty much since we met about launching a podcast, working together, being able to work a lot from home, and just enjoying, like we hang out all the time. And so we have like a home gym, and we pretty much would stay home all day long. So we decided to launch a podcast and share. It was a fun, like the moment that we realized what we wanted to call it and what the direction of the podcast was going to be was a fun moment. And I was traveling and he was cleaning out an old book bag or something. And he's like on the phone with me and he's like, I found money. And I was like, oh my God, it pays to be clean, which was really just me joking, like he should clean more. Like, see, it pays off to be clean. Let's clean. And he's like, oh my God, it does. That's great. So really being able to share how it pays off to live clean in love, lifestyle, and looks. And so that's really like our passion project. And we want to be able to share with people this insight behind doing things the right way and having integrity and working on yourself and being focused on growth individually and together, mind, body, and spirit, and show that it does pay off. Like it makes for a really good life when you live clean. And we come from a city where living less than clean is glamorized. And so we've had a lot of experience where people aren't necessarily living in a way that is going to pay off long term. And we want to show that even coming from a city where we've spent so much time and have had so many quality relationships, that even in the midst of that, when we lived clean individually before we met and then coming together, it's like, that's why we've been able to accomplish the things we have. And that's why we've had God's hand on both of our lives before we met. And now that we're together in relationship, we see that even more.
That's so good. Well, I'm excited for everything that you have coming. And I know women are going to be inspired by hearing your journey to get there. And also, we'll make sure that we put the name of your podcast and all of that where they can find you in the show notes. And then I have one last question for you. So this you can answer it any way you want, funny, serious, but what is the most brave thing that you've ever done?
Wow. You gave me no time to think about that.
This is it. This is the moment.
The most brave thing I have ever done is be really honest with myself that I didn't have anything figured out. And when I did that, that was the start of my personal development journey. And I knew that I had a lot of healing that needed to get done, and that I had a lot of beliefs that were not serving me, and that there were ways I was being that were detrimental to my success. So being ready to take a real look at myself and be honest. And even still today, I mean, that's a journey I'm on. Weekly calls, I take yearly courses where I'm focused on my own personal integrity and recognizing my own self-deception. Where am I off? And that takes a lot of bravery to be that honest with myself. And I'm certain that there are still areas that are that I have yet to explore, that God continues to reveal to me daily on how I can raise the bar for myself, knowing that impacts everybody around me.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. I think so many times we want to just avoid those things, and you just go at life head on, whether it's making yourself better or making other people better. You are all in, and I'm super excited for what you have next and what Texas is going to do for you in your next journey. And thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I know everyone's going to be hearing a lot more from you here in the area.
Thank you. I'm honored. I really am honored that you asked me after such a short time of connecting. And I'm excited to see what God does with you. this is going to be an incredible year for you too.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thanks for joining me for today's conversation. If this resonated with you, please save this podcast to your playlist and share it with your friends. If there's a conversation that you want to hear, make sure and reach out at brave1.net and send a topic request. Until our next episode, remember to put your brave on.